Hi, thanks so much for joining us today for the CM Murray LLP podcast. My name's Corinne Staves. I'm a partner in the CM Murray team, and I'm delighted today to be joined by what we refer to as our VIPs. What that is our Virtual Intern Programme, and this is a group of people who join us for a week's virtual work experience this year in September. The reason I've asked them to join us today is because we talk regularly in the legal services sector about what the next generation think, about what the next generation wants. And frankly, for law firm leaders, understanding what the next generation of talent want and need is going to be key to recruiting the best talent and keeping the best talent in the sector, and thus driving the business for the future. Often these conversations take place without next generation lawyers participating, which is often means there's a lot of speculation and guesswork. So I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by these three individuals who are on the brink of a legal services career, hopefully, unless this experience of recording the podcast puts them off. So I'd like to invite them to introduce themselves to us all. I'm going to start looking at my screen with Grace. Grace, would you mind just introducing yourself?
Hi, Corinne. So my name is Grace. I'm a third year law student now, and I'm studying law and French.
Thanks so much, Grace. And coming around my screen, Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm just entering into my third and final year of my law studies at university.
Thanks, Tom. And last but not least, Archie. Hi.
Hi, my name's Archie, and I've just recently finished my conversion course into law, which comes with the LLM, and I'm now considering moving on to the SQE.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Archie. And thank you to you all for joining us today. I guess where I'd like to start in this brief conversation is just to think about what holds appeal for you as in terms of the legal services sector. You've all obviously joined this program with us to get a sense of being in a law firm might be like, and you've all sort of thought possibly about a career in legal services, and I'd love to hear from you what you think might appeal from a career in the law. Perhaps we come to you, Tom, first. What is it to you that sort of appealed to you about law and possibly might appeal to you about a career in legal services?
I quite like interacting with people, and I think I like giving back to people. So there's a strong element in that, and also it's just an area that really interests me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do any of you, I don't know, Archie, whether you have any sort of preconceptions about what that role might be like, what being a lawyer might be like, or is it quite opaque from the outside looking in at this stage in your development? Obviously, you've sort of gone down the conversion course route, so you've sort of got a relatively strong commitment now, not least because you've had to pay for all of that. But in terms of what you're expecting, do you feel like you have a good idea of what you can expect from a career in the law?
I mean, yeah, as you said, I am committed now to that course, but I think at this point, the career options are still quite open, and I think that that's quite a positive thing. I think that I'm very open to any area of law at this point. I mean, obviously, we've been interning with you in employment law, which has been hugely helpful and interesting to see the real workings of a law firm, which was completely new to me. I mean, my background was in politics, which is kind of legal adjacent, but I think law offers the best work opportunities, especially as Tom was saying, with working with people and having hopefully a good route to progress, and not just kind of be stuck somewhere in the civil service, which is where I was going to end up. So I'm at this point, yeah, I'm not sure how a career might look, but I'm kind of open to the options.
So it does sound like law firms could do more to help potential entrants to the profession understand what a career in law actually means in practice, to understand almost sort of day to day. Grace, do those comments resonate with your expectations and with your rationale for considering a career in law?
I definitely agree with what Tom and Archie have said. I feel like, from what I know so far, a career in law, it seems there's like so many opportunities. I feel like going into my third year of university now, I see like law around me so much more than I kind of knew before. So I feel like there's so many opportunities, which really excites me. And then also, I don't know, it really appeals to me because from what I know and from what I've learned so far, it seems to be really like collaborative, and working with teams, which I really enjoy doing and like love talking to people. So yeah, that's what I kind of am excited about for a future career.
Thank you so much, all of you. I should point out to anybody listening to this podcast that I did stress at the beginning of this that this is not a job interview. So I hope these represent the real views rather than just the interview answer. It would have been perfectly appropriate, for example, for anybody to say it's because of the money. We're really grateful for those insights. Thank you. I want to sort of also in this discussion address a bit of an elephant in the room, if I may. We hear law firm leaders and senior law firm partners sometimes talk about a frustration that they perceive that the next generation of lawyers within their organisations specifically don't aspire to partnership. They don't want to be business owners. This is the perception that these people have. And I'm not sure that it necessarily bears out an experience I've had, but this is a great opportunity for me to ask you guys, as the next generation of lawyers, if that's a choice that you make, what sort of aspirations and expectations do you have for a career in the law? Are you sitting here thinking that's actually where I want to end up? I want to be a law firm partner, or are you looking at it thinking actually there's a point beyond which I wouldn't want to go? Again, you can only comment at the stage you're at the moment, and I know things change over time, but it would be really interesting to hear your current perspectives. Again, bearing in mind this is not a job interview, so please feel free to speak freely. I think maybe can we come to you first, Grace?
I don't know. I feel like it's really early to say, like, at this point in my career. But definitely working in a law firm does appeal to me, and being a partner, I mean, that would be like a great achievement, obviously. Like, I hadn't heard that personally, that people in law firms think that people my age or in my generation don't want to be partners, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it would be cool, obviously. And I mean, you do have a lot of responsibilities and stuff, but I think it's a really good opportunity to, like, you can talk to people, you can have a really big impact, when you're at the top level of a law firm. So I think it is something exciting to be a partner. But yeah, so I guess that's my view at this point in my career.
No, and obviously that's all you can provide at this stage. You never know what the future will hold. I mean, Tom, does that resonate with you? And I think the point that Grace made there about responsibility and kind of risk, I suppose, in the sense of sort of being a business owner and running a business is, I think, a major feature of obviously it's a major feature of being a law firm partner, but it's, I think, one of the aspects that people highlight as being a drawback of being a partner, and that people are shying away from. Does that sort of fill you with horror, or do you just see that as part and parcel of that sort of progression?
I think that sort of, I absolutely agree 100% with what Grace has said, in that that's definitely not something that I personally would necessarily shy away from. I think that, building off of what Grace said with regards to sort of that dauntingness of it is a big sort of responsibility, and I'm not necessarily sure that, for example, both me and Grace, I think, are going into our third years of university. It's certainly, in my experience, it's not necessarily something that we're, like, the partnership and becoming a partner isn't really sort of discussed within the university, and then it's almost a bit opaque. I think that this work experience has been really good in sort of trying to sort of get, like, the inner workings of the law firm and understand that. That's been really useful. But I think sort of, if I speak broadly, it's not necessarily as clear about the responsibilities, because I think if you went up to a random law student and said, would you like to become a partner? Yes, they would like the sort of end goal, but it feels a bit daunting in getting there for the process.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see that. And actually, there's an interesting lesson there, isn't there? Perhaps people who are educating in law, I mean, obviously not every law student goes on to be a lawyer, lots don't. It's a fantastic degree to have for any sort of career progression, but equally a large proportion of people who do law are interested in a career in the law. Therefore, it's not inconceivable to say, well, actually, maybe some insight into how law firms work, or what opportunities there are, and what that looks, and the sort of the way that businesses run could actually be quite an interesting angle for universities to offer, really sort of practical angle for law firms to offer. Archie, do you are you sitting here thinking, no way, Jose, I'd never want to be a partner, or is that your sort of already your end goal? Do you have any thoughts at this stage in your career?
I think what I would say, I mean, I know that every generation tends to believe that they've had it the toughest, and I understand that viewpoint, but I would like to suggest, from my experience post-uni, I struggled with an undergrad to actually get any opportunities that I was looking for. I was particularly interested in consulting, and I found that it's now a kind of a prerequisite to have at least a master's level qualification to get many of these positions, which I think it's a changing market. So that I think that my generation do actually face now a particularly difficult job market. I think that we've inherited quite a difficult position. And I would like to say that I don't think that it's for lack of aspiration or work ethic that many of us, like myself, are struggling with that. But I think that many of us who do have that aspiration to rise up and have a great career, I think the key that we'll find for success in that is just flexibility and an open mind. Like, I didn't think that I'd end up converting into law, but it seemed it worked for me. But I'm still very open to opportunities across a range of sectors. And if it ends up in law, if I do fully commit, you said I've committed somewhat now with my conversion course, but I mean, I could still convert again.
There's never any doors shut.
Yeah, I'm not completely set on that yet, but I hope that whatever route I do take, if it is law, then yeah, of course I'll be aspiring to to become a partner, and hopefully that law will still have those opportunities for me.
It's interesting you make that point about masters. I mean, obviously, any kind of higher education has a huge sort of price tag attached to it, and obviously that's easier for some people with some backgrounds than others, and there's a huge sort of social mobility implications if, for example, kind of master's degree qualifications and above, it becomes kind of a prerequisite, as you say, because that's yet more cost. And again, lots of internships and things are sort of on an unpaid basis. So there's a huge social mobility piece sort of at play there. And we are seeing a lot of discussion about the shrinking of EDI programs within firms, particularly given the noise from the US. I don't know, and I apologize because we haven't sort of discussed this in advance, but I don't know whether that's something that's feeding through to people who are in their studies and thinking about careers, nor do you think that does affect people's choices? And I'm not just thinking about your peers who are also thinking careers. Do you think that social mobility and those sorts of factors are influencing people's choices about whether or not to pursue a career in law? Or I mean, maybe you don't feel able to comment on those particular questions. I'm sorry, just to chuck it in, but obviously you'll kind of you'll have a huge range of friends outside sort of the law space as well.
It is playing a factor. I mean, a lot of people that I know have done similar conversion courses into law. They've kind of discovered that. I mean, as you said earlier, without being crass, law is historically it's a lucrative field, and in a very difficult economy. I want to own a house. There's my goal.
I would say the same in your shoes.
Mobility.
Exactly, of course.
Yeah, so social mobility is definitely a driving force behind law, but also many kind of financial positions in the city are also going to be. I know so many of my friends personally have kind of converted from a range of educational backgrounds, a variety of these degrees that have then gone, instead of pursuing my passion for English literature, I'm going to end up trying to, I'm going to chase the money and I'm going to do something in the city. That's just kind of the state of it. I don't know if that's a sad indictment of our current position, but that seems to be if you want to make money, you've got to chase these sort of roles.
Yeah, and I think it probably is a bit of an indictment because the cost of living issues are so acute at the moment. But I also don't think it's new. I think that concept of sort of chasing city roles because they provide a degree of security, financial and otherwise, is not a new concept. I don't think that prior generations were sort of perceiving things any different to current generations, in my view. But that's really interesting. Thank you. I guess the other topic that I'd really like to chat to you about is technology. And this is something that's occupying law firm leaders a huge amount at the moment, understandably. It's partly the kind of the march of AI, the march of the robots, but technology generally, because law firms are being completely revolutionized by the adoption of technology solutions and AI solutions, more specifically. And I wonder what your take is on all of that, and maybe we could start with you, Tom. I know that when we talk in law firms, we talk about AI and technology changing the way that people will progress through law firms, and perhaps taking the jobs or changing the jobs of people who are sort of more junior in the organisation, and removing opportunities to train and so on. And I don't know whether that will play out. None of us can comment at this stage about whether that will happen or not, but it'd be really interesting to hear your perspectives on the impact of technology, both sort of in your sort of educational journey, but also what you perceive to be your career journeys as well.
I would definitely say that AI has a place within sort of the legal sort of world, I am perhaps a bit more on the cautious side than perhaps some of my peers. And I think that at the risk of maybe sounding slightly archaic, I think that it would be amiss not to bear in mind, like you say, the opportunities for training, and sort of also linking that in with what Archie was saying about the financial implications of the economy and young people who have just starting sort of work, and sort of perhaps some of those positions then not being available, and then also that closing doors, like you said, for then progressing further in the firm and taking up those training contracts and things like that. Yeah, I think that I'm open to AI, but I think that probably the proceed with caution would be sort of my view of it.
Like so many things. Grace, does that resonate with you? Do you perceive kind of change in the pipeline because of the adoption of technology in firms, or are you not sort of seeing that flow through yet to sort of your perceptions of what a career in law might end up being?
No, I do agree. Like, I think it will inevitably, at least slightly, change the legal field, just like it will change, most other sectors of the economy and the way we live our lives as well. Like, it's hard to say exactly how, but I do see it having at least some effect on jobs, on even how lawyers do their jobs. But obviously, I do agree with Tom that it's important to be cautious, but I do see it as a really great opportunity that we should embrace as well. I think that I think it will make life easier for lawyers, probably, in a sense as well. And AI, although it does seem daunting, like, I definitely agree. I think that it's a really exciting, it's kind of an uncharted territory of the law, and I think that what comes with that is really exciting, and it'll provide more opportunities as well, probably. So yeah, that's kind of my view on it at this point.
No, I think that's a really, really interesting perspective, and I think it's a really healthy perspective as well, because that's a really good point. If the type of work that I did as a trainee, it's going to make me sound like a dinosaur, but that's probably fair. We had to do a lot of work manually, and if those sort of quite manual, quite sometimes dull tasks can be performed by machines, which frees up the sort of the human beings to do the interesting, the difficult, the complex, the sort of mentally stimulating work, then that's absolutely an opportunity that we need to embrace. I don't know, Archie, are you does this resonate with you? Are you Team Tom, sitting there with your inkwell and feather in a darkened room, or are you Team Grace?
I think I share a bit of Tom's caution, and I think a bit of Grace's optimism. I think somewhere in the middle. I think that, as Grace said, I think it's going to be adopted. Its continued adoption is inevitable, because it's such a great technology with many opportunities. The difficulty will come, I think, when as it kind of prices many of the, especially as you said, the junior roles, it prices them out of the market more and more. I think law firms are going to have to grapple with the idea that it's the most cost effective and maybe even the better route to adopt AI more and more and more. But the difficulty is going to come with training the new generation. And it's not going to be cost effective for many of these companies. And you can make a principled stand as a law firm and try to avoid it as much as possible, but you're just going to lag behind. To remain competitive as a law firm in this world, you need to be at the cutting edge of this technology rather than trying to avoid its inevitable progress. But maybe then that will signal a change in direction. I mentioned previously that historically the legal routes and opportunities are how people get rich, but I think many of my generation might have to start looking towards the AI and AI development as for new job opportunities, because it's going to push a lot of people out of a lot of markets.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think that's a really interesting perspective. And I apologise, Tom, for being mean, but I know you can take it. But I think that we are all at this sort of juxtaposition, and law firms split into sort of both camps, really. That sense of we need to be at the forefront, we need to be pushing this technology. But at the moment, being blunt, I think a lot of firms don't know how to embrace these tools and are cautious because there are questions around things like liability. If a machine makes a mistake, whose PI pays for that? Well, it's got to be the law firm, right? But if the client is for example, interacting with the technology with little input from the law firm, then does that change it? So there are some really interesting questions, and don't even get me started on professional ethics and the SRA standards and so on, because again, what if a machine makes a bad ethical call? Whose fault is that? It's not the same as human beings who have that inbuilt moral compass. So it's going to be a really fascinating area for us all to sort of watch evolve over the next few years. I guess as we sort of draw the discussion to a close, I just want to come to each of you for a final thought, if I may, and maybe I'll come to you first, Tom, in a moment. I was wondering if you could speak directly to law firm leaders, and we have a number of law firm leaders on our distribution list, so you may be. They are desperate to hear from the next generation of lawyers, to understand what the next generation of lawyers want from a legal role, because they want to recruit the great people and they want to keep the great people. So I guess this is an opportunity to sort of to tell them direct, what is it that excites you, that would attract you to a law firm, that would persuade you to stay at a law firm. Again, I know it's difficult because you're at such an early stage and you haven't got that practical experience working in a law firm, but at this stage in your career, when you're thinking about who to apply to, what would you say to those law firm leaders to persuade you to put your application into them as opposed to other law firms? Just briefly. So Tom, I wonder if you wouldn't mind kicking us off on that.
I think that for me, sort of probably the main deciding factor for me, and it's going to sound very cliche, is probably the culture of a law firm. I think that sort of the difference between, because whilst we can all go and look at the legal 500s and the client reviews, obviously firms are going to be more wanting to put out the positive reviews. I think that for me, probably the most important aspect of it is sort of that culture of openness and friendliness, and I think transparency. I think is a big one for me. So just transparency at probably all levels, I would say.
Yeah. Interesting. Can I ask you just a supplementary question? Because I think that's a really valid point. But how, as an applicant, do you have any idea about the culture of the firm? Obviously, you can sort of read what the firm puts out, but how do you kind of create an impression of what the culture of the firm is, sort of from the outside looking in at that early stage?
I mean, I think for me, what I tend to do is obviously I completed the CM Murray internship, and I've completed a number of other internships this summer. So I think that gives some insight into sort of the relations between people. I think that also just in terms of correspondence to you as well, as an applicant, but also as an intern as well, in sort of, I'm not necessarily, diminishing the work of my fellow interns, but as we are probably bottom of the food chain, sort of how they treat us versus how you would treat a client, for example, I think is usually a good indicator.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and easy wins for potential employers to have here. They don't treat people with respect. It doesn't seem like rocket science, does it? I don't know, Archie, do you have any tips for law firm leaders on how they might appeal to potential recruits and keep people if the applications are successful?
So I mean, at risk of showing my hand, this last year of applying to various vacation schemes and training contracts has taught me one thing, and that's that you can't be picky in this in this game. And to be honest, getting the foot in the door means that I think a lot of the things that Tom said are completely true, and I'd agree on. But I think that for me, I feel like that's going to have to be a later consideration. I think that if I did, say, hypothetically have pick of the bunch and I could choose from any firm of my choosing, I think quite a sensible approach is to think of reputation first. I think some of the larger firms, as we've discussed during this internship with you, a much smaller boutique firm. The larger firms probably lack in that culture and that friendliness and that kind of long-term appeal. But I think that what they probably do offer, if you were to, at my early stages, do some training, spend some time, with those terrible work hours and those cold corridors, I think that would give me more mobility later on to then find a firm such as yours, where hopefully I'll have more experience and I could, specialize further in a boutique firm in whatever area of law I end up enjoying. I think that's the kind of the best approach. But as I said, at this point, I think I can't speak for my fellow interns, but I know how incredibly competitive it is at the moment. So yeah, I think to not be picky is the advice for the interns, and for the law firms, just unfortunately you've got the stronger position. So you don't really have to do a lot. Really, people will still apply.
That's a really fascinating insight. Thank you, Archie. And I can assure you that although I know it's a hard market at the moment, that sort of not being picky is not exclusive to this generation. I lost count of how many times I wrote, "Thank you for rejecting me from your work experience placement. Please can I have an open day?" I can't remember how many of those letters I wrote. So yeah, that experience resonates with me, certainly. Grace, coming to you last. Have you got any tips for law firm leaders on how they can sort of attract and recruit and retain just the next generation of superstar lawyers?
Like what Archie said, like I wish I could just, have my pick of the lot, like that would be great. But if I was to say to them, what draws me to firms the most is definitely engaging with people who work there, whether that's through like legal fairs at university or in-house open days, or even like a virtual internship like this. I think that just by interacting with people, you can gauge so much of a firm's culture. Like what Tom said, I think culture is super important, because this is going to be your career. You're spending like most of your week with these people in this firm. So I think that, speaking to people who actually work there, and it definitely gives me such a great insight into the culture of the firm and the kind of, I guess, like vibe that I get from the people who work there. So yeah, that's what I would say. I really like just interacting with people and, asking them questions, and yeah.
That's actually a really nice way of describing culture, isn't it? It's hard to articulate what culture is, but vibe is actually quite a nice way of sort of summing it up. And it's really interesting how your comments and Archie's comments resonate with that point that Tom made right up the top about culture. So I guess to sum up then, the message for law firm leaders that listen hard is make sure that people understand what sort of culture you're promoting within your business, and the actual culture within your business. And the way to do that is to create opportunities for open days, work experience placements, meeting prospective recruits, so that people can sort of be enthusiastic about applying to the firm. And I take your point, Archie, about the pickiness, but how wonderful to as a law firm leader to have people who are enthusiastic and really keen to join the organization if or when they have the sort of the pick of the bunch, if you see what I mean. Thank you all so much for participating in this discussion. I, for one, have really enjoyed chatting to you all. And I know it's sort of a bit of a daunting prospect, but so I commend you all for sort of joining us for this discussion. We all wish you well in your future careers. The superstars of the future, I have absolutely no doubt. And thank you to everybody for joining us for this podcast. Law firm leaders, take note. Thanks again. Bye-bye.